I want to bring in NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Michael, this is more than inaction, arguably. According to all of the evidence, he rejected offers of help. He didn't call any law enforcement. Talk to me about how, not only how unprecedented this is, but also how extraordinary compared to what the vice president was doing, even though he's not in the chain of command.
This is something of a kind that we have never seen before in American history, and I hope to God we never see again. This was not just a president, just as you're saying, both of you, Andrea and Katie. This isn't a situation where there was a spontaneous uprising on Capitol Hill and Trump was slow to get on the phone to the National Guard or didn't do enough to calm them and get them, out of the Capitol. Everything we're learning from this hearing, this set of hearings, suggests that this was a president who was at the center of a massive blueprint to take down democracy in order to steal an election which he was not entitled to, could have involved martial law. There are suggestions now it may have involved assassinations of a vice president and congressional leaders and others. This is still continuing. We're getting more and more information. But when before in history have we seen a president, for instance, who was communicating with the wife of a Supreme Court justice through his chief of staff, or calling secretaries of state in the states and saying, I need some more votes, give them to me so that I can stay in office? Or, as he did on the 6th of January, calling up individual members of Congress and saying, I need you to help me. I won this election. I want you to hand it to me. We never saw anything like that. Plus, within the executive branch, every sign this week that the Secret Service was corrupted, the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense. This was a massive blueprint that didn't just happen by accident. We don't know the full extent yet, but to treat this only as Donald Trump didn't do enough to stop something that someone else started, I think what the facts are suggesting is something that's much larger.
Again, we've really lowered the bar when it comes to Donald Trump's action or inaction over the past 7 years. Let's also,
as you have shown us both in your books and also what you reported, Katie.
Thank you, Michael. Let's talk about what happened to the president that day and just dwell on it for a second. The conversations in the White House about it are some of the most chilling that we've learned about in these hearings. This is what White House insiders testified about rioters calling to hang Mike Pence. Listen.
On the screen is the last photograph of the president that night as he went into the residence. As he was gathering his things in the dining room to leave, President Trump reflected on the day's events with a White House employee. This was the same employee who had met President Trump in the Oval Office after he returned from the ellipse. President Trump said nothing to the employee about the attack. He said only, quote, Mike Pence let me down.
It wasn't until Mark hung up the phone, handed it back to me, I went back to my desk. A couple minutes later, him and Pat came back, possibly Eric Hirschman too. I'm pretty sure Eric Hirschman was there, but I'm confident it was Pat that was there. I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, you heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong. To which Pat said something, this is effing crazy. We need to be doing something more. Briefly stepped into Mark's office.
Do you remember any discussion at any point during the day about rioters at the Capitol chanting, hang Mike Pence?
Yes, I remember hearing that about that. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if I observed that myself on TV.
I'm just curious. I understand the privilege line you've drawn, but do you remember what you can share with us about the discussion about those chants, the hang Mike Pence chants?
I can tell you my view of that.
Yeah, please.
My view of that is outrageous. And for anyone to suggest such a thing as the Vice President of the United States, for people in that crowd to be chanting that, I thought it was terrible. I thought it was outrageous and wrong. And I expressed that very clearly.
Michael, I know this moment resonated with you.
Well, yeah, it sure did. And I hope we never become numb to what we're hearing, although we've heard it a lot, especially during the course of these hearings. You know, you hear a president say, basically, you know, Mike Pence may deserve to be hanged. And it leads you to the conclusion that if Mike Pence, God forbid, had been hanged on that gallows outside the Capitol, we still don't know where those came from. If that had happened and that had allowed Trump to stay in power, we're left with the conclusion that that would have been fine with him. You know, people running through the Capitol saying, where's Nancy? Would that have led to some kind of physical danger for the Speaker of the House? What I'm worried about is that we get so familiar with this story that we think this is the way that American history operates. We have never seen anything like this. You know, this is way off the track of democracy. We've got to get back on it, make sure we never get off again.
It's not just hyperbole. We heard from Secret Service agents that day over the radios, and you could hear the fear in their voice. We heard from that security official in the White House saying that over the radio, they could hear Secret Service agents asking for someone to say goodbye to their families. So the fear was real that day, especially the fear surrounding Vice President Mike Pence. Michael Beschloss, yes. Thank you very much. Andrea, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you both.